Several African countries are initiating measures to reduce their carbon emissions. Some are embracing renewables to make the transitions, while others are taking, of course, taxing citizens to curb their use of fossil fuels. Now, in South Africa, plans are underway for just energy transition, but as featured in this report, the plan is not without its challenges. Authorities in the Rainbow Nation have, however, put in place strong carbon taxes, penalizing companies for high emissions, while some African countries have also begun charging ordinary citizens to discourage their use of fossil fuel. Now, let's have more details of that in this report.
South Africa, like the rest of the continent, has untapped potential in terms of solar, wind and hydroelectric resources, but large investments are needed to harness the benefits.
Africa has the most potential for renewable energy, but less than 3% of the global investment around renewable energy is coming to Africa. Is one, the aspect around inadequate investments. There's a problem around lack of technological expertise because we depend a lot on technology from outside the continent. We are depending on sending raw materials that are going towards development of renewable energy technology outside, and now having to import them back into the country as materials that we're buying back.
Speaking recently at a climate financing summit in Paris, President Cyril Ramaphosa said South Africa needed around $98 billion to transition to clean energy. The president also reminded leaders that the North industrialized at the expense of the global South.
So every time when we talk about a transition to clean energy, we are talking about policies that are perhaps negotiated in the West, and we are assuming that they can be executed in a linear format. That is not true because we don't have one Africa. We have an Africa with 55 countries and 55 different conditions. We must be careful not to assume that all countries must transition from fossil fuel at the same pace globally when the continent needs baseload, which is necessary for industrialization.
South Africa has carbon taxes in place, penalizing companies for high emissions, while some African countries are now penalizing ordinary citizens to discourage the use of fossil fuels.
But we need to be cognizant of the fact that in the continent, 600 million people have no access to clean, affordable energy. And therefore, as we talk about energy transition, we must accept that Africa will have multiple pathways. There will be a priority to electrify and to pursue universal access to electricity, which can be achieved by a combination of fossil fuel and renewable energy sources.
The reliance on fossil fuels also dominates the energy sector in many African countries. Replacing existing infrastructure of coal, fuel and gas with cleaner alternatives will come at a heavy cost. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.